All right, everyone, welcome. So, real quick, we're going to go ahead and give you a very short, quick overview on how to work with your sketchbook as well as your very first project here in the class. And that deals with drawing a box or multiple boxes in kind of a 3D style and using your ability to shade or add shadow and highlights to give it that 3D effect. So, this is just a little wooden box I had lying around the house here. And what I wanted to do was use this box as a illustration to help you see differently. Now, things to take into account. Right now, I obviously have a white background and a red table. I'd be smart to have a neutral background, something like a black towel or blanket or something that way would really showcase and focus the box itself. But for right now, for our purposes, I think this will do just fine. Also, we're going to completely ignore the little handhold. We're going to pretend this is a solid box. Now, what I want you to think about as we're kind of trying to rework our brains so we can see in 3 dimensions is whenever you're thinking about a 3-dimensional object, understand that there are no outlines, right? Whether you're used to drawing comic books or cartoons or just doodles, we often rely on very bold outlines. And we want to try to already, right at the very beginning, we want to try to break free of thinking about these outlines because they're really going to cause us to draw much more flatly, much more 2-dimensionally than we want. What we really want to showcase is this illusion of 3 dimensions. So focus on the fact that when you look at this box, right now you see 3 sides, and of course I can rotate it so there's only 2 sides showing, but the same principle applies. I have a light source up here on this side, so it's coming directly down. It's hitting the top of the box first, then this side, because the light is over here, and then this side last. So we've got A, B, and C. And each one of these, because they are perfectly flat planes, each one of these is going to be progressively darker and darker. So whenever I go to add shadow and shading, or highlighting if you want to work in reverse, whenever I go to add these values, that's what we call shading, whenever I add value to my box, I'll think about how the top is lighter, the side is a little bit darker, and then this side here is the darkest. Then you also want to take into account the surroundings, right? We call that our negative space, the kind of space surrounding our object. And that could be the table itself, that could be the background. If there's one clean sheet here, then maybe it's just a solid color, or solid value, excuse me. But also think about how the fact that even though this is a reflective surface, the box itself is casting a shadow. Again, that light is hitting the box, that box is blocking that light and it's casting a shadow on this side. That's what we call, no surprise, a cast shadow. So let's learn how to draw something like this. So we need 2 elements. The first one is to think about where we place our shadow, which we've just talked about. And the next one is to think about how do I draw something that feels 3-dimensional and not a 2-dimensional kind of flat square. We want to think in 3D like a cube, not a 2-dimensional square. So let's go ahead and shift gear. All right, so here we are. This is just my sketch paper here. This is a little bit smaller paper than what you guys are using. It's just what I had lying around. And then I do have that same box here off in front of me. So I'm looking at the box. I know you guys can't see it, but pretend. Same as before, the light source is coming from this direction. So I'm going to illustrate and draw exactly what I see, which is the box here in front of me. And again, you can see that box still there, and there we go. Okay, so line this thing up. Okay, for my materials, like I said, I've just got some basic paper. I grabbed some charcoal. This is Vine charcoal. I don't know if you guys have ever used it before, and we do have it as a supply for this class, so I'm going to show you how to use that. I've also grabbed some of this. This is kneaded eraser, and you can see kind of knead it with a K, right? Knead it, like you're kneading dough. And it's really cool. It's an eraser, but you can self-clean the eraser by kneading it, right? So as it gets dirty and gross, you just do this a little bit and it cleans. You can also manipulate it, which allows you to get a fine tip, which allows you to really kind of get in there and clean things up. I like kneaded eraser. You don't need it, of course. It's not required for the class, but it's very nice. And then I've got a whole set of pencils. If you've never used drawing pencils before, now you're welcome to use just a plain old number 2 pencil if you want, but if you've never used drawing pencils before, I'd really encourage you to do it because it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So for example, we know that there are 3, right? We've got 3 different sides, A, B, and C here. And what I can do is assign a value of pencil to each side. So for example, way down here, 8B is going to be my darkest pencil. B for kind of bold, right? 8B, bold. So we're going to leave this one aside. That's going to be my background. Then we're going to come up on here, let's say 5B. That's going to be my darkest side. Then we'll keep coming up. Let's do, I don't know, 2B, or not 2B. That'll be our medium. Way up here, let's do, let's do like a 3H. 3H, that's very light. H for like hard, right? If it's really hard, and then a lot of it's not going to get onto your paper. So kind of chalky is more on the B side, and H is going to be much harder and therefore softer. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got a lot of different values. I think we're ready to jump on in. Now, whenever it comes to drawing, I'm going to grab my 2B pencil here, it's just kind of middle of the road. Whenever it comes to drawing anything in 2 dimensions, you really want to steer clear of starting with flat shapes, right? This is very flat already. It's just not that realistic, right? This box is rotating in space. We want to think about it like a 3-dimensional object. If you've never had a drawing class before, you may not already have heard of these terms, but there are things called perspective, 1-point, 2-point, and 3-point, and there's also 4-point perspective. And the idea is basically that this box is going back into space. So for example, if I started with a flat side, let's say something like, there's my flat side, right? As I tilt it, notice how my sides here are kind of going back into space. Can you see that? Look how they go back into space. They kind of lean in a little bit. They kind of taper on the sides. As something goes further away from you, it gets smaller the farther back it goes. So think about how if you're looking at a long hallway, right? That long hallway appears to recede from you and kind of taper away, and things further away from you get smaller. So I could take this box here, and I could just pull these back, and I can give the illusion of 3D space. Let's do that again. Let's go, here's my square. I can taper the top, and cut it off. Now, this is going to be perfectly straight because this is perfectly straight because that's perfectly straight. A good cube is made of 3 sets of 3 identical lines, right? Parallel lines. So for example, watch this. I'm not even going to make a box. Watch. So I'm going to go, let's pick a direction. 1, we're going to want the exact same parallel line. 2, 3, okay? 3 parallel lines. They're not going to collide. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. See where we're going? 1, 2, 3, and there's our box, right? It's 3-dimensional. 3, height, width, depth. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's really, really easy. So you want to illustrate your box as realistic as possible. So in my case, I can see the corner of the box. So 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to draw exactly what I see. So to do that, I'm going to start with the actual corner, the corner that's facing me. And I'm going to draw it going away from me, exactly as I see it. And I know that there's 3 sets of 3 horizontal lines. So whatever direction I pick, 1, I'm going to just copy that over here. Let's see. 2, copy that same line. Look, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do the same thing, looking at my picture. 1, I'm not too worried if it's perfect. I'll clean that up later. Making sure it's parallel. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Don't worry about little edges. We're going to add a lot of shading and value to this. We're going to be coloring right over top of it, so it doesn't matter if it's perfect or not. Okay? Now, we've already picked out our pencils, so let's stick with that. So I've got my 8B, that's the darkest, my 5B, my 2B, and my 3H. So let's start with the lightest and work our way down. We can always add more, and we can also erase. So I know the top is going to be the lightest because the light source is coming in this direction. So I'm just gonna literally choke back on my pencil a little bit. I don't wanna go really close. We're not taking math notes or anything, right? Choke back like a Harry Potter magic wand. And I'm gonna kind of push down with my index finger. This is called the overhand grip. Instead of holding it like you're taking notes, right? I'm reaching my hand over, and that way I can push with my index finger. Okay, very lightly. Sorry if the camera's wobbling there. And I'm just using the side of the pencil to shade. So even the brightest part of the box is still gonna have some level of value. If that's too dark for you, you can just take your eraser here, kind of lighten it up a little bit. But everything's gonna have some value. Nothing will be perfectly white unless you're looking at like a reflection. Okay, cool. Next, 2B, or not 2B. I'm gonna keep going with the lame jokes, guys. I'm so sorry. All right, let's go. And I'm just gonna hold that camera there. And notice again, just using the side of the pencil. Not really worried about keeping inside the lines. We always think for years and years as you're a kid in school that, you know, being an artist is all about perfection, and it is absolutely not. I make mistakes all the time. Please do not worry about making something not perfect. So I've got a lighter side, a darker side. I can even smudge this with my finger. You ever get like this kind of chalky mess on your hands? That's okay. So let's just smudge that around a little bit. Okay. And again, I want to get a nice crisp, look at this, I can take my kneaded eraser, nice crisp line. I don't want an outline. Remember, I don't want an outline. Look at that. So I'm just looking at the edge between the lighter and darker side, and I'm letting my highlight here, my eraser, do a lot of the heavy lifting. Okay, lighter, darker. Next up, oops, 5B, there we go. Let's go ahead and shade that in as well. And again, because it's a pencil set, I'm not pushing any harder. The pencil is just softer. Now, if you're using the same pencil for the entire picture, then you may need to push a little harder, and that's okay. Look at that. Looking pretty good. Let's switch back. I'm gonna do a little cleanup right there. 2B, I'm actually gonna rotate ever so slightly here. Let's get a nice, clean edge right there. Okay, looking pretty three-dimensional to me, right? Looks pretty good. Now, what do we do with all this extra stuff? Well, that's why we set aside this really, really dark pencil here. And I could push really hard too, but again, this one's doing all the heavy lifting for me. The light's coming from this direction, which means that our cast shadow is gonna be on this side, and it's going in this direction. So let's just pull out our shadow here. We'll say it starts here, kind of falls back. We're just going to color that in real quick. I'm just gonna let it fade out. Darkest toward the edge, and just letting it fade out. I can go in different directions too if I want it to be really dark. Just let it fade out, let it be messy. Who cares? Not about perfection here. That looks like a spotlight's on that thing. Woo! Again, I could clean it up if I want to. Maybe I want to fade it out just a little bit more. I could also just take my finger to it. Kind of smudge that around. I'm a big fan of just getting messy here. Okay. Remember that everything has some value, so let's switch back again. I'm gonna grab my 2B pencil. I want the background to have a little bit of value too. Just a little bit. And I'm taking those outlines that still exist, and I'm just kind of blending them into the background. And that makes the highlighted area really pop. The darker the background, the lighter the foreground, right? Again, I'm not really worried about blending it out. Not really worried about a lot. This should be a fun, entertaining activity for you. Just throw in some values down here. So, anywhere that you see an outline, we have to decide, do I make the background darker or do I make the box darker? We have to choose one or the other. So in this case here, I can still see this outline, and I want to make the choice that I'm actually going to make this a little bit darker. I'm going to go by 8B and push really soft. I want to make that really, really dark. And again, it's all about making those choices to basically get rid of your outlines. See that? Now the outline's gone. I've chosen to make this darker, which means that the background's lighter, and it all works together. Let's look. Here's another outline right there. Let's go back. I'm going to darken the background because I want the top to be lighter. Okay, same thing on this side. Okay, here's this one now. This is kind of a medium value. Do I want the background to be darker? Do I want the box to be darker? I think I want the background to be darker. I really do. I think that's where I'm going to go. You don't have to. You could choose a different direction. That's the best part. There is not a correct decision here. Right? There really isn't. You're just choosing one or the other. And it'll work. I could make that darker too, and it would still work. It doesn't matter, but you have to make a choice, right? Same thing here. You know what? I think because of the tables here, I think I actually want that to be lighter. So we're going to play up here a little bit, because again, the light's coming from this direction, right? Let's lighten this. Use my eraser a little bit. Let's say the table's like right here. So it's kind of cutting across. Cutting across right there. There we go. Look how that eraser instantly puts a table in the room. Okay. And of course we need to darken, because now we have an outline, right? So darken that out. Look at that. Now that looks like a cube, right? It is three-dimensional. I'm thinking about where to add shadow and shading. I started with an outline, but I very quickly smoothed those outlines out by choosing to have a darker object or darker negative space. By doing that, you're going to create things that are much more three-dimensional than before. And we can do the exact same thing with Vine Charcoal. So let's go ahead and jump over. We'll use this guy here just because. So Vine Charcoal is chalky, right? It's very smudgy. Look at that. But between erasers, kneaded erasers specifically, and Vine Charcoal, you can get some really beautiful things. All these little outlines you can get rid of very quickly because you can color right over top. Watch, I'm going to use the side. Look at that. Woo! Instantly. Some value. I'm going to smudge this around. So now we've got kind of like a medium gray. Instantly. The whole thing is medium gray. So we're talking kind of this box here, right? Or this side, excuse me. Look at that. Messy. You're going to get messy. Now let's go ahead. Okay, our light's coming from this direction. I'm going to add more to this side. Oops, sorry about that, camera. Again, not really worried about perfect little sides. I'll clean it up later. Okay, smudge it around a little bit. Like I said, really chalky, messy, gross, but kind of fun too. You can just add more and more and more. You can do this for days. Okay. Let's add that cast shadow while we're here, pushing really hard. I'm just gonna smudge it out. Now there's one big problem with Vine Charcoal, and that is it is smudgy kind of forever. An easy way to fix that is you can get a spray adhesive called Fixative, or honestly just use hairspray. A little bit of hairspray will lock that stuff in. It helps a lot. Watch this. I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, okay, get a nice clean side, just like that. Nice edge, like a little shark's fin. And I'm going to clean up my top. Because remember, this is a medium gray, so that means I can remove to get a lighter gray, just like so. Okay, look at that. 1, 2, 3. 3 sides. Done. Done. Let's clean up this edge here a little bit. Look at that. We can lighten up this side maybe. Put that table in there a little bit. So we've got two shaded boxes looking very nice. Now, for your actual project, you are going to want to stack these objects so that they are multiple pieces all together all at once. And to do that, let's go back to our quick sketch. You're going to start with one, just like we have here, right? And then just imagine the next one sitting on top of it. So if this is now our new top plane, right, that we're putting something on top of it, then all of a sudden I just want to make sure whatever rotation or angle I have, let's say there's another one here, let's do, there's one here, it's kind of hanging off the side a little bit. So that's the bottom of the box, almost like I have x-ray vision, I can see right through it. Then the sides, and then the top. Just like so. So now I've got a box on top of another box. See him kind of sitting there. Something you can do to practice, if you think back to whenever you were in, high school or middle school or whatever, this is a really easy one, right? You draw a square, draw 1, 2, 3, 4, and then draw another square. And you get this kind of x-ray vision. Or you could do a square and another square and connect your sides. Now, I don't want you to do this for the actual project, but if you're having a hard time drawing these cubes, start with something basic, right? And all we're doing is thinking about one side, then this one here. If I have x-ray vision, I can see there's another side here, and I'm just connecting my edges, right? Think in 3D, then worry about your shading, okay? This is your sketchbook, and you can take these ideas to your final. Hopefully that helps, guys. All the best, and we'll see you next week for more introductions. If you do have any questions, please, please, please reach out to me. Drop me an email. I'm happy to send you a personal video if that's what you need, or any other kind of advice along the way. When it comes to finding your boxes, like I said, I'd highly suggest that you find something that you can manipulate physically and actually see rather than just finding a picture online. It's easier to see 3 dimensions when it's actually 3D. And it does help having some kind of backdrop, again, a towel or blanket or something, more so than trying to guesstimate where the table is and where the background is. So all the best. I will see you guys next time, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.